now from California, Congressman Darrell Issa in Washington. Good morning, Congressman Issa.
Good morning, Don, and thanks for having me back on. It's a great day in America. It's halftime. We're just halfway through a Congress.
Well, speaking of all of that, you guys passed this, before we talk about the Fast and Furious thing, passed this payroll tax cut without paying for it. Isn't much the Tea Party people aren't just screaming about all this, and other Republicans and other people?
Well, first of all, Republicans have always felt that you don't have to pay for a tax cut. The truth is that letting people keep more of their money is inherently the right thing, and it helps spur the economy. But quite frankly, this whole mired-down question of whether or not we kick the can down the road on myself, you, and the rest of us paying in our payroll for our retirement health care, hopefully this is the last time we do it and we get back to some serious discussion about reform of the tax code and, by the way, trimming the incredible amount of overspending that's built in Washington.
If there were reservations then about doing it, why did it get done?
Oh, Don, that's an easy one. Once you get the messaging all wrong, you end up doing things in Washington you probably shouldn't. The fact is that the messaging is wrong. People are looking at this as whether it's a tax cut or not. They're looking at it as whether or not they're having a tax increase if they go back to myself and yourself included paying in for our own Social Security. And once you get the messaging wrong, you do dumb things in Washington. Certainly, I think we can do better than endlessly have an argument over this. The fact is that the president just gave us a new budget. He proposes for the next 4 years to go deficit $5 trillion. That's not the right direction, and his budget, in fact, doesn't fix any of the problems, and hopefully we'll have a debate on how to actually make not just cuts, but reforms. You know, my committee is the Government Oversight and Reform, and everyone looks at the oversight part. But the fact is, in the State of the Union, the president called for reorganization of government. We do need to reorganize to spend less, and it can be done. Most corporations wouldn't have 22 or 23 people who theoretically sit at the cabinet table and report directly to the president, and they certainly wouldn't have hundreds and hundreds of different IT programs with different software suppliers. They'd come together and say, look, let's get a system that talks to itself and get it for a fraction of the cost of buying hundreds of different systems.
Some people think, Charles Krauthammer, smart people like him, others, that the president's budget is probably a naive assumption for me to make, but it's going to lead to a question, is all about politics, and that is that it's Krauthammer's view and others that the way to appeal to the most voters is to offer them a bunch of free stuff.
Charles is right. And that's one of the patterns that we get into in democracies is trading off what I want for what you want, basically earmarking, if you will, a bunch of goodies for different states and different places. Most importantly, though, the budget is a campaign election year tool. Years ago, before you and I were on radio together, when they did the Hoover Commission, what they did was they said, look, we got to reorganize government. Let's start by having smart people come together, make sure there's buy-in of the House and the Senate and the president beforehand. It's been a long time since we've had that kind of discussion about how do you deliver all of the essential services but do it for less.
Because I have the attention span of a hummingbird on crystal meth, they're talking with Congressman Darrell Issa. Refresh me on this. Fast and Furious is what now?
Fast and Furious is really one of those felony stupid things that keeps happening, where people in the field say, well, if we just, let guns walk, we can find out where they go, and then we can arrest the big guys.
So tell me what they did in this particular instance. What
they did was probably the worst offense we've ever seen, which was they let over 2,000 weapons disappear. Literally, they recorded them being bought at the stores that were cooperating, these gun dealers. They saw them on video, they saw them leave, and then they told the ATF, don't follow them past the first point, and we'll find them in Mexico. And as we look more and more, we realized that there were people at Justice that knew you weren't going to find some of them in Mexico. There were others that knew exactly who was taking them to Mexico. The question is, why did we let 2,000 deadly weapons, with our help, end up in Mexico in the hands of the cartels and ultimately lead to Border Patrol agent Brian Terry being gunned down in Arizona because not all the weapons were over the border?
Well, who authorized this?
We find that it's authorized at least as high as Lanny Brewer. He's number 3 in Justice, works for Eric Holder directly. He heads up sort of the criminal division. So in a sense, he's the top of the criminal division.
Yeah.
One of the questions, though, is what are they going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again? Lanny Brewer and his chief deputy are still there. And every time we get a little closer to the details of this, they find somebody to say, this guy's fired, this guy's been transferred. We don't want to know about firing and transfers. We want to know about how you make sure this never happens again. And if we've got to pass a law that says the Attorney General goes to jail if you do it again, that's an extreme measure. But when are we going to have some confidence that you and I are not going to have if you will, weapons go walking and then be lied to? And we were lied to in writing and in testimony, saying they never let guns walk. And on the day of the letter, February 4th, Lanny Brewer was in Mexico trying to sell the Mexican government on more gun walking. So that kind of attitude shows they're not trying to quit, just the opposite. They're trying to placate us. And, you know, it's one of those issues that should have gone away, well, when Senator Grassley looked into it a year ago. But instead, it's been delay and deny. We have about 6,000 pieces of paper we've eventually gotten under subpoena. The IG, who's investigating this internally, has 80,000 responsive documents. You got to ask, what is it about your internal review that somehow entitles to do more than an external review? And this is the reason that we've talked in terms of potential contempt if we don't get better cooperation.
Well, we all know in any large corporation or in the government or wherever, the buck stops at the top. So what does the Attorney General say he knew about this?
Well, the Attorney General says he didn't know, and when he became aware, he still didn't know the details, and when he finally became aware, he knew it was wrong. What he said to us in testimony that before our committee, where he said it was a very fair hearing, but he said he was waiting basically for the IG's report before deciding maybe who to fire. We think that's pretty late, and it certainly isn't fair to the Terry family, who have been waiting a year and seen essentially nobody held accountable.
Doesn't sound to me like he's telling the truth. I don't know anything about it.
Well, let's just say that, you know, he's an attorney, and in Washington, when you put an attorney, a politician, and a cabinet-level position, what you end up with is nuances of the truth. It's the reason that I have many attorneys working as investigators. It takes a long time to get the truth when people tell you what sometimes is technically the truth, but they make you play 20 questions. We've been playing 20 questions for a year. The American people are getting tired of it. Our committee's getting tired of it. Don, the most important thing for us is to help make government more efficient, more effective, and more responsive. These investigations very much are things we'd prefer that we resolve them quickly so we can get on to, quite frankly, jobs, the economy, and trimming government, things that the American people are asking us to do together.
Santorum's going to be a guy, looks like. You happy with that?
You know, I've lost a lot of faith in a president that I didn't vote for, so I'm happy to look at alternatives. I personally support Mitt Romney. I tell my friends, you know, in my lifetime, we've never had a person whose primary description is businessman in the White House. Never. Unless you include Truman as a failed haberdasher. But the fact is that having someone who understands the global economy, having somebody who understands that the front of a paycheck has to be filled in before you and I can sign the back, I'd love to see that. I really would. But I'll take the nominee.
Here's a guy I want you to think about. Joe Walsh, guitar player for the Eagles. Think about Joe. So could be a good.
Wait. You know, I was actually thinking that Mike Love looked really good at the Grammys, and he's ready, he's rested. You know, he still has his voice. You know, we could have a debate about who we should have in the White House.
All right, Congressman. Thank you very much. 11 minutes till the hour.
Thanks.